Exposed, she lost her job for saving a veteran's dog, but what happened next is incredible. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Sarah's life took a sharp turn. While hidden beneath the golden canopy of oak leaves in Point Pleasant, Iowa, she stumbled upon a frantic war veteran. John's face was twisted in anguish, searching frantically for his beloved service dog, Buddy. The connection between a soldier and his dog is as profound as it gets. She could see it in his eyes, a raw, desperate hope. The town buzzed with activity, but there was a silence around them, punctuated only by John's panicked voice. "He means everything to me." As Sarah's heart tightened, she knew she couldn't just walk away. She was on her lunch break from the coffee shop, her mind buzzing with orders and the weight of budget-tightening bills, but none of that mattered now. She joined him in the search without a second thought. Together, they scoured every corner of the town square, calling out for Buddy, her heart pounding in rhythm with John's fear. "Don't worry, we'll find him," she reassured him, though a tightness coated her chest. The urgency of the moment wrapped around them like a heavy fog. Days turned into frantic nights as Sarah felt the ripple effects of her decision. She lost her job for leaving her shift to help John. The bruising weight of financial strain settled heavily on her shoulders, threatening to crack her already fragile world. As her father chastised her over the phone for throwing away her job, she felt the whispers of shame slither in. It was not about real work to him, it was never about the passion that filled her heart. Yet, as the community rallied behind her with fundraisers and social media pushes, it was undeniable she had ignited something within the very fabric of Point Pleasant. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But beneath the supportive murmurs, guilt crept in like a shadow, curling around her heart. Did her moment of kindness cost her too much? On the surface, the town celebrated her bravery, the act of compassion buoying her spirits, but deep inside, the unresolved tension with her father throbbed persistently. She wanted to carve out a better future for her children, longing to show them the beauty of kindness, even amid chaos. It wasn't long after that an unexpected partnership emerged. Her estranged father proposed they start an animal rescue together to help veterans in need. It was a lifeline for their fragile bond, but it felt heavy with unspoken words. With every rescued dog they took in, a softening of heart seemed possible, but Sarah worried, would his old beliefs reassert themselves? As the opening day drew closer, excitement crackled in the air like static electricity. She hoped for forgiveness to bloom from the rescue's mission, but doubts haunted her. Not just about the rescue, but about her family, their past, and the chance for healing. With a heart full of hope and shoulders weighed down by fear, she stood at the precipice of change, waiting for that next moment that could either bring her family back together or push them apart once again. The day was coming, and it felt monumental. Would love take root, or would their unresolved pasts bring about more heartache? The day of the grand opening arrived, draped in a tapestry of nervous anticipation. Banners flapped gently in the wind outside the new animal rescue, Paws for Heroes, painted in vibrant colors that didn't quite mask the gray clouds hovering overhead. Sarah stood at the entrance, her heart racing as townsfolk began to trickle in. As she looked around, recognition flashed in her eyes. The faces of her neighbors felt familiar, yet distant. They were there to support her, yet the weight of her father's anxieties loomed like dark clouds, threatening to ruin the bright day she had envisioned. She could feel him next to her, rigid and stern, carefully arranging the donation boxes with unsteady hands, eyes focused but troubled. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice gruff. "Ready as I can be," she replied, forcing a smile. The first few moments were filled with warm hugs and heartfelt congratulations. Local news outlets had shown interest, and a camera crew arrived just in time to catch the worm of hope slithering into the fabric of their community. But with every camera flash, Sarah's still raw guilt echoed louder in her mind. In the midst of cheerful chatter, John appeared at her side, looking more confident than she had ever seen him. "You did this, Sarah," he said, his voice filled with gratitude, yet something else flickered behind his eyes. "You made a difference." "No, we did this together," she insisted, glancing around, noting the laughter of children playing with the dogs they had rescued this week. They had made it happen. The bond had begun to form, one paw, one smile at a time. As the sun broke through the clouds, a puppy bounded toward Sarah, ears flopping, tongue out, tumbling over its own feet. Laughter erupted, and in that moment, her heart softened. Sarah knelt, feeling a rush of warmth. The small creature licked her cheek, and for a fleeting moment, all doubts faded away. But just as she settled into this joyful bubble, she spotted her father standing at the door, his expression fixed in a frown. He was observing her every move, and she felt another wave of tension ripple through her. "Keep your head high, Sarah. You're doing what's best," he had said at least a dozen times since they had started this journey together. But somehow, she had a feeling he didn't believe it. "Let's cut the ribbon," called out a familiar voice, Emily, her old coworker. With that, the happy chatter of voices spiked to a crescendo, and the crowd began to gather around. Sarah took her place beside her father, scissors in hand. As he stood beside her, she couldn't help but wonder if this would truly mend their fractured relationship or just expose them further. The ribbon stretched between them, a barrier ripe with hope and hesitation. With a deep breath, they snipped it together, and the crowd erupted in cheers. But even amid the celebration, Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. The incident at the coffee shop lay just under the surface, waiting for the right moment to rear its head. "Look!" someone exclaimed, pointing to a little boy teasing a puppy with a toy, joy written all over his face. For a brief moment, the pain of her sacrifice faded. Joy filled the space around her, an infectious energy surging through the crowd. Yet, Sarah's mind turned back to the past. Her decisions had cost her, and while she wished to believe in the goodness of human connections, fear lingered, fear that this venture would be another reminder of what once was. As applause rang in her ears, she caught her father's eye. Behind the thin veneer of approval, there seemed to be curiosity and fear woven into his silence. Would this rescue heal them, or merely hold up a mirror to their past mistakes? John stepped into the light, piecing together his story as he began to speak. "I couldn't have made it without Sarah, but would they be able to forge a future together, or was this merely another fragile connection waiting to crack under pressure?" Amid the cheers and laughter, Sarah felt the weight of a growing uncertainty. What would tomorrow bring? Would she find the courage to confront her past, or would it draw her back, deeper into a realm of heartache yet again? The celebration swirled around Sarah like the vibrant colors of the banners overhead. Laughter mixed with barks filled the air, but beneath that lively exterior, unease coiled in her belly. Every cheer seemed to nudge at the thoughts she wished to suppress: the risk she had taken, the job she had lost, and the fractured bond with her father. John's voice broke through her reverie, the sincerity in his words pulling her back. "You've inspired everyone. This place is filled with hope for so many." He smiled, a beacon of warmth, yet she could still feel the shadows at the edges of his gaze. "Thanks, but it's not just me," she replied, forcing her own smile, hoping it didn't look as strained as it felt. "It's everyone here." At that moment, a loud collision interrupted, causing heads to turn. A rambunctious puppy, its fur a mix of gold and white, tumbled into a tower of donation boxes. The thud echoed, and Sarah couldn't help but laugh. It was a charming chaos that felt oddly fitting on this day. As people rushed to help, her father finally approached, the frown still etched on his face. "Do you really think this is going to work?" he asked quietly, looking out over the crowd with furrowed brows. There was a tightness in his voice that tugged at her heartstrings. "It will, Dad. It has to, she answered, her confidence shaky. There was something so heavy in his gaze, a mixture of pride and worry. Do you really believe in this? He pressed, his tone more urgent now. Yeah, I do. It's about second chances, about making sure no one gets left behind. Silence fell between them, each lost in their separate reflections. The noise of the crowd faded for just a moment, replaced by the weight of unspoken words. Did he see her? Did he understand the push and pull of hope and fear coursing through her? As if on cue, a little girl tugged on his sleeve, pointing at the puppy still wreaking havoc. Look, mister. Can we take him home? Her eyes sparkled with innocence, and for a split second, Sarah saw her father crack a smile. Maybe, he replied cautiously. If he behaves. Sarah took a breath, trying to absorb the glimmer of connection. This opening wasn't solely about the animals, it was about rebuilding bonds. Yet the uncertainty still sat heavy on her shoulders. Still, the grim thoughts simmered below the surface. She saw the way her father measured every interaction in the crowd, and it wore on her. What was he thinking? Would bringing home a barking puppy somehow act as a salve for their strained relationship? John stepped forward again, calling for everyone's attention. He spoke openly about how Sarah had helped him when he felt he had lost everything. As he shared his story, Sarah felt the weight of the moment, the impact of connection, and still, that buried dread pulsed through her veins, whispering doubts. Even as hope took root within the crowd, anxiety coiled tighter around Sarah's heart. All she could picture was that fateful day at the coffee shop. If anyone discovered the truth, what would it mean for this sanctuary she had fought so hard to create? As the afternoon rolled on and the sun dipped closer to the horizon, glimmers of gold burst through the clouds, casting a hopeful warmth over the scene. But Sarah felt trapped between joy and anxiety, each twinge in her heart echoing the possibility of failure. Suddenly, a loud yelp broke her thoughts, drawing her attention to a new commotion near the front. A ragged dog, eyes filled with fear, had slipped away from a stranger's grip and bolted into the throng of cheering kids. Someone stop him! Sarah shouted, already moving toward the chaos. What was she getting into this time? With her heart racing, she launched herself forward, determined not to let fear claim another moment. But as she approached the scramble, anxiety twisted inside her again. If they failed this dog, could it tear apart everything they'd just started? Just at that moment, she turned to see her father taking a guarded step into the fray. Would he join her? Or would he retreat again, leaving her to face the storm alone? The moment pressed tightly around them, and in a day's bright potential, the fight for connection just became so much more complicated. Would this day mark a new beginning for them all? Or was it the beginning of losing it all? Sarah pushed through the crowd, her eyes locked onto the frenzied movement of the runaway dog. The chaos morphed into a swirling mass of laughter and clumsy steps, but fear gripped her heart. She could almost see the headlines, the disaster that could unravel everything they had built. Hey! Come here, boy! She called, her voice cutting through the sounds of celebration. The dog's tail, a wild flag of panic, whipped back and forth as it dodged hands reaching to grab it. Just as she reached out, a gasp echoed from nearby. She turned to see her father, his brows knitted in concentration. He was moving. He was coming closer, taking hesitant steps toward the noisy crowd, determination flickering in his eyes. Could it be? Was he really prepared to help? Dad, watch out! Sarah called, her heart pounding. She lunged left, aiming to intercept the dog before it could bolt further. Time blurred as the puppy zigzagged through laughter, wild and uncatchable. Every joyous shout seemed to push it further away until Sarah lost sight of it completely. And then, she spotted a flicker of movement near the edge of the crowd. Her father was crouched low, his hand outstretched. Here. It's okay, boy. He coaxed, the steadiness in his voice surprising her. Sarah held her breath, half in disbelief. What was happening? He was engaging. The dog, still trembling, shifted toward his calming presence. Slowly, it ventured closer, and before Sarah could process the moment, her father scooped the little guy into his arms. The crowd erupted into cheers, a ripple of relief spreading like a wave. "See that?" he said with a soft smile, holding the puppy tightly. He was just scared. A flood of emotions crashed over Sarah: relief, pride, and something else, something she had longed for between them. The distance between her father's guarded heart and her own felt smaller, bridged by an innocent life they both wanted to save. John joined them, clapping her father on the back. "You two make quite the team," he laughed, but Sarah barely heard him. She was too focused on her father's expression, the light in his eyes that had been absent for too long. "Can we keep him, Dad?" The little girl from before chimed in, her own puppy now nestled in her arms, unaware of the tension it had just destined for chaos. With a gentle look, her father glanced between the puppy and his daughter. "We need to see if he is comfortable first. Let us take him to the vet tomorrow." Sarah felt the swell of hope rise again, tempered by the knowledge of what was still left unsaid. If he was willing to take that next step, could they truly rebuild? But the lingering dread still remained. They had just faced a moment of connection, yet tomorrow loomed with uncertainty. "Thanks for believing in it," Sarah said quietly, daring to reach out to him, hand brushing against his arm. "Sometimes it takes a little chaos to realize what matters," he replied softly, eyes drifting to the jubilant crowd. As the sun dipped lower, gilding the moment in a vibrant hue, the puppy barked, sending everyone into fits of laughter again. But just as Sarah felt a saying, a thought crept up her spine, forcing her back to the shadows of the past. What would happen when the truth of her own mistakes came crashing down around them? Would this fragile connection crumble just as easily as it had begun? Her father turned to her, reading the uncertainty etched across her face. "You all right?" "Yeah, the words faded. Did he really want to know what weighed on her heart? The music and laughter faded into a surreal background as the reality of her secret loomed large. The day had been a small victory, a spark of hope at the edge of darkness. But what if all it took was a single truth to extinguish that flame? With a deep breath, Sarah steadied herself. The open door to possibility flickered like candlelight. But as the moment clung to her, one thing became painfully clear. The real battle wasn't outside but within. Was she ready to face what lay ahead? Would she find the courage to unveil her truth? Sarah took a breath, forcing the whirlwind of thoughts and fears to settle. She glanced at the tiny puppy nestled in her father's arms, the gentle rise and fall of its chest a comforting sight in the midst of her anxiety. If only it were as simple for her as it was for this innocent creature, just needing a little kindness to feel safe. "Dad," she started, her voice shaking slightly. "Sarah, what is it?" he asked. His expression was open, sincere, and it tugged at her heart. This was what she had been waiting for, a chance to reach him, really reach him. "I know today was a good day. But," she hesitated, struggling with the weight of her own honesty. "I've messed up. I made choices that hurt people, including you. And I don't want this moment to be fleeting, you know?" He took a deep breath, the kind that seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken words. "You can't keep holding on to the past forever," he replied softly, cradling the puppy closer. "What matters is what you do from this moment on." His words struck her like lightning, igniting a flicker of courage within her. To him, the world may have seemed straightforward, black and white, but for Sarah, it felt layered and complex. She had spent so long hiding behind her mistakes, convinced they defined her. "What if I can't change how people feel about me?" she whispered, the words slipping from her before she could bring them back. "Then you show them who you are now," he said, locking eyes with her, the connection sparking with an energy she hadn't felt in years. "Each day is a chance for a fresh start, even if it feels overwhelming." Frustration bubbled in her chest. "It's not that simple. What if I lose you again? What if, Sarah?" His voice cut through her panic. I'm right here. You're here. And we just saved a dog together. Look at that. He gestured to the puppy, whose big, round eyes seemed to glimmer with more wisdom than any human could possess. If we can face something so chaotic and come out better, we can deal with what comes next. You just need to trust. Those words reverberated through her, echoing the very hope she sought. As the crowd around them continued to celebrate their small victory, Sarah considered their battle ahead. Whatever truth lay buried in her past, she would have to confront it not just for herself, but for the connection she was starting to build with her father. John stepped back into their space, a grin plastered on his face. You two look like you're about to take over the world. What's the plan? Just figuring some things out, her father replied, beaming. Right, Sarah? Right, she echoed, but uncertainty still gnawed at her. How could she walk this tightrope between honesty and guilt? Good, because I have a feeling we're going to need that team spirit. John chuckled, eyes dancing with excitement. A little puppy bonding sounds like a great start. Sarah forced a smile, but her thoughts raced. What would tomorrow hold? The vet, maybe a new friend to take care of, but beyond that, what about her own reckoning? The laughter still rang out like music, but her heart thudded with a different rhythm, one of anticipation and fear. Are we really talking about names for him already? John continued, clearly unaware of the storm brewing in her heart. Maybe. Sarah started, her courage wavering again. Can I suggest one? Her father's gaze remained on her, hopeful yet mysterious, as if he could tell she was about to reveal more than just a name. Outside of this small moment of joy laid a weighty silence, another part of her fate waiting just around the corner. Sarah's mind spun with possibilities. If only she could gather the strength to voice these secrets, maybe they could all truly move forward together. But would she find the right words when the moment arrived? Would they be ready for what she had to say? The uncertainty loomed like a shadow. Sarah knew she had to be ready to confront the truth. The day dawned brighter than Sarah had expected. Sunlight spilled into her bedroom, illuminating the small space she'd inhabited for too long. The puppy, still nestled in her father's arms, seemed to embody the hope she craved. As she breathed in the fresh morning air, a new determination sparked within her. Today could be different. All right, buddy, what do you think we should name you? She murmured to the little creature that had unknowingly forged a bridge between her and her father. How about Charlie? It means free man, which is pretty fitting, don't you think? The puppy's ears perked up, and in that moment, the name seemed to resonate. Her father chuckled softly, reminding her of better days when laughter was the only sound in their home. Charlie it is, he agreed, his smile easing the tension that had tightly coiled in Sarah's chest. But with that relief came the knowledge of what lay ahead. They left the house filled with excitement for Charlie's first visit to the vet. Sarah's thoughts drifted as they drove. This was just the beginning. She could feel the weight of her past pressing down, held tight by fear of rejection and embarrassment. Each mile that passed felt like a journey back to an old self she wished to shed. John's playful banter helped distract her. Okay, what if we got him a little bow tie? Or maybe a superhero cape? Imagine Charlie swooping in to save the day. Sarah laughed, feeling the warmth of their camaraderie. There was a freshness to this moment, as if they were creating memories anew. But as the car pulled into the vet clinic's lot, her stomach flipped with dread. I'll wait outside with Charlie while you talk to the vet. I think he might get a little overwhelmed. Her father's voice broke through her thoughts. Just don't let him out of your sight, okay? The puppy's curiosity was a blessing and a curse. Once inside, Sarah was greeted with the familiar smell of antiseptic and anxious pets. The sight of other animals and their owners reminded her of the times she had been here before, moments overshadowed by guilt. She took a deep breath, determined not to let it consume her. As she waited for the vet, she scanned her phone for messages. A flood of anxiety washed over her as she saw a notification from her old boss. She hesitated to open it, afraid of what it might say. Something deep down urged her to read it, to confront yet another aspect of her past. Finally, with a trembling finger, she tapped on the message. It read, "Sarah, we need to talk. I understand your decision, but there may be consequences." Her heart raced. The memory of the dog she had rescued, a veteran's faithful companion, flashed through her mind. Was this the consequence she had to bear? Sarah? The vet's voice interrupted her thoughts, bringing her back to the moment. Right here, she replied, trying to steady herself. The brief consultation about Charlie's health faded beneath the weight of her own turmoil. All she had wanted was to help, to change, but it seemed the world still held onto who she used to be. As she stepped back outside, her father gathered Charlie in his arms, and once again, their eyes locked. There was understanding between them now, a silent acknowledgement of their shared fears and hopes. "Everything okay?" he asked, clearly sensing her unease. "Not yet," she admitted, sorely aware of the messiness lying ahead. But somehow, for the first time in a long time, she felt less alone. If they were to navigate this patchwork of hurt and healing together, Sarah would have to find her voice. Taking a deep breath, Sarah looked at the puppy wiggling in her father's arms and knew she owed it to herself to reclaim her narrative. And just as she was about to share her plans for the future, her fears and the potential storm ahead, a sudden ruckus erupted from the clinic. A barking frenzy broke loose, echoing her own rising anxiety. "What's happening in there?" John asked, his grin fading into confusion. As they turned to look back, uncertainty mingled with curiosity. Could today usher in yet another unexpected twist? The chaos inside the vet clinic escalated. Loud barks, yelps, and the unmistakable sound of startled humans filled the air. Sarah's heart raced as she exchanged a worried glance with her father. "Do you think something's wrong?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, the unease curling in her stomach tightening like a coiled spring. "Let me check," John said, setting Charlie down. The little puppy, ever curious, scampered toward the door of the clinic. "Wait! Charlie!" Sarah shouted, even as she felt a pull, an urge to follow her father. With each step toward the entrance, they entered a vortex of barking, scrambling paws, and worried pet owners. John stepped inside and immediately braced himself against the rush of activity, a little cloud of fur darting past him. "It's just a small dog who got loose. Someone's trying to catch him," he reassured Sarah as she caught up to him. Nearest to the door, a lady stood flustered, her hand on her mouth as she watched. "I think he belongs to the Johnsons. He was here for a checkup." "Let us help," Sarah declared, feeling a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. For the first time today, she wasn't just an observer of her own past anxiousness, she was stepping into action. "Right behind you," John said, moving alongside her as they both began to navigate through the jumble of legs and tails. "Charlie! Stay close!" she called out, but Charlie was just as enthused by the excitement, his little legs moving in joyful bounds. There was something freeing about this moment, the way vulnerability slipped away as they focused on the task ahead. Like a pinball, the escaped dog zigzagged across the room, narrowly avoiding paws from the anxious pets in their crates. Sarah spotted the little creature, its fur a flurry of brown and white, but it took a sharp right before she could get a firm grip. "Dad, over there!" She pointed, already knowing that she needed to outpace him to reach it. John nodded and took off while Sarah followed close behind, their voices merging with the chaos, laughter and shouts mingling as they coordinated their efforts. It was like a dance, a light-hearted challenge. Finally, John managed to corner the little escape artist with the help of another vet tech who had also jumped into the fray. Sarah watched as he scooped up the squirming bundle. "Gotcha!" He grinned, out of breath but exhilarated. The crowd around them erupted in applause and relieved laughter, a moment of success breaking through the tension. Once the commotion began to settle, Sarah felt a wave of joy wash over her. It was a simple, unexpected twist to the day, yet it filled her heart with warmth. She turned to see her father smiling broadly, the puppy nestled safe in his arms. "See? We make a pretty good team," he said, his eyes twinkling with pride. Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that erupted freely. "We do. But I think Charlie got a little too caught up in the excitement." She bent down to scratch the little puppy behind his ears, her heart swelling with appreciation for the bond they were forging, but as they exited the clinic, the earlier email from her boss loomed in her mind, heavy but persistent. Despite the joy of this moment, the weight of unfinished business tugged at her thoughts. Could she really find her way back to herself in the midst of all this uncertainty? As they made their way to the car, a sense of quiet determination grew within Sarah. She could reclaim her narrative, step by step, no matter what consequences awaited her. Just then, her phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with a new message. She instinctively swallowed hard, feeling the dread wash over her. Not again. What could it possibly say this time? Sarah felt a jolt as she reached for her phone, her fingers trembling slightly. She knew it was probably yet another reminder of the looming deadline her boss had set for her report. The words from the email clung to her in a way that felt almost suffocating. Taking a deep breath, she swiped the screen to reveal the new message. As the notification opened, her heart sank further. It was her boss again, with a curt remark about needing to see her in the office as soon as possible to discuss her recent absences. The clock ticked in her mind, taunting her with every second until she became overwhelmed by the threads of anxiety weaving tighter around her thoughts. "Are you okay?" John asked, noticing the pallor drain from her face. "It's work," she managed to say, voice barely above a whisper. But the truth echoed louder in her mind. It was the fear of facing her boss, the fear of what she might have to explain or even defend. "Maybe it's nothing," John said, trying to reassure her. Charlie whimpered, sensing Sarah's unease, brushing against her legs with his floppy ears. "Maybe," she echoed, but the doubt lingered. They climbed into the car, the quiet now enveloping them like a heavy blanket. Sarah's thoughts raced. Each beep of the car's lock seemed to punctuate the tension hanging in the air. "What if I'm fired?" The thought spilled out before she could stop it. "Let us not go there yet," her father said, gaze firm on the road. "You just handled a chaotic moment like a pro. You're strong, Sarah. You're going to be just fine." His confidence in her felt like a buoy in her tide of uncertainty. But as they pulled out of the parking lot, the doubts returned, swirling restlessly. What if all the efforts to turn things around were for nothing? As they drove, she felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. Can I really get back to where I was? Can I reclaim my career? She whispered to the window, the passing trees reflecting her turmoil. John broke the silence. "Remember when I lost my job last year? I thought the world had come crashing down. But it was a chance to find something bigger, something that made me truly happy." His words hung in the air like a promise. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe losing her job wouldn't mean losing herself. But just as hope began to kindle within her heart, her phone buzzed again. The vibration stole her breath, and she glanced at the screen, half expecting more bad news. This time, it was a message from a number she didn't recognize. Curiosity pricked at her cautious heart as she opened it. "I heard what happened at the clinic. We could use someone like you on our team. Let us talk." Sarah blinked at the screen, her mind racing. Was this a lifeline, or another moment of false hope? She looked at her dad, who raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the sudden spark in her demeanor. What did this mean? Was she ready to leap into the unknown? "Dad, I just got a message." He turned to her, a sense of urgency growing in his expression as he tried to decipher the look in her eyes. "Whether it's about a new job or something else, you owe it to yourself to explore it," he said sincerely, with her heartbeat echoing loudly in her ears. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before her. In that moment, Sarah understood that the path forward wouldn't be easy, and fear would always lurk. But perhaps taking the first step into the unknown was the only way to reclaim her voice. As she typed a response to the mysterious message, another thought crossed her mind: could this be the beginning of something incredible, or just another turn down an uncertain road? The wind stirred outside as Sarah sent her response, her fingers trembling over the tiny screen. She hit send and watched as the words disappeared into the digital ether, feeling a mix of relief and dread wash over her. What if this was the opportunity she'd been waiting for? Or what if it turned out to be just another disappointment? "Hey, don't overthink it," John said gently, his gaze shifting from the road to Sarah's anxious face. "Whatever happens, you'll handle it." Sarah forced a smile. It felt surreal, clinging to the hope that maybe this time would be different. She glanced at her phone, half expecting a reply, but all she saw was her own reflection staring back at her, a mixture of determination and fear etched across her features. They arrived at the office, the towering building looming above them like an immovable force. With every step towards the entrance, her heart raced faster. "No matter what happens inside, just remember that you're not alone," her dad reminded her as they came to a stop. "Thanks, Dad," she said softly, gratitude flooding her heart. "I'll be okay." That small reassurance felt fragile, but it was enough to carry her through the lobby, her palms clammy against the grip of her coffee cup. Every face she passed felt scrutinizing, and doubt clawed at her. What were they thinking? Did they know about her struggles? As she approached her boss's office, the knot in her stomach tightened. She took a deep breath and knocked. "Come in," came the curt reply. The room was sterile, filled with the faint scent of coffee and printer ink. Her boss, clearly already on edge, barely looked up from the documents sprawled on the desk. "Sit," he said, his tone flat. The weight of his gaze settled on her like a heavy blanket. "I've noticed you've been absent more than usual," he said, finally meeting her eyes. "We need to talk about your future here." Every word felt like a blow to her chest. "I've been trying to deal with a few personal issues," she managed to say. "Listen, this company needs people who can commit." His voice turned steely. "You need to bring your A game or, well, you know." Her heart raced. Why was it so hard for them to see how hard she was trying? "I understand," she forced out, fighting against the tears threatening to spill. She left the office feeling drained, her thoughts muddled as she stepped back into the hallway. The walls felt closing in, and an urgent need to escape surged through her. But then her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the reply she had been waiting for. "Let us meet tomorrow afternoon at the coffee spot. I think we could make a great team." A wave of warmth washed over her, countering the chill of anxiety. She couldn't believe it. Hope flickered again. "Sarah." John's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood at the entrance of the building, a concerned look in his eyes. "Are you okay?" She grinned, feeling light for the first time in days. "I think I might have something." As they walked out together, the sun shone brighter, illuminating the path ahead. Maybe this was her moment, a chance to start anew. But as they crossed the street, a familiar figure caught her attention, and her heart jolted. It was her boss, side by side with someone Sarah had never expected to see again, the manager from her old clinic. Was her past about to collide with her present? What did it mean for the choices she had to make? Sarah stood frozen, her heart racing as she locked eyes with her former boss. The vibrant autumn colors around her dulled in contrast to the wave of anxiety crashing over her. The manager was pointing at her, a shadow of doubt cast over Sarah's hopes. "Is that Sarah?" her boss said, barely masking disdain in his voice. "What are they saying?" John muttered beside her, sensing the shift in her energy. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her stomach knotting tighter. "But it can't be good." Panic clawed at her throat. Were they here to discuss her? To undermine her efforts at the rescue? She felt the weight of her secrets coiling tighter around her, and the warmth of the day suddenly felt cold and mocking. Just breathe, John encouraged, stepping slightly in front of her as if to shield her from what was to come. You've got this. But the very sight of the two men whispered of danger, igniting every insecurity in her chest. Each word of judgment hung in the air, taunting her struggle. Let me handle this, John said, bounding forward with a confident stride, tension radiating from his long-lost spirit. John, wait. Sarah called after him, but it was too late. The moment was spiraling. She fought against her instincts to retreat but felt drawn to follow him, a force compelling her toward the confrontation. What do you think you're doing, Sarah? Her old boss's voice sliced through the air like a knife, a blend of disbelief and anger lurking just beneath the surface. I'm doing better, she managed to assert, forcing herself to step forward and reclaim her ground. Her heart raced at the realization that she was not just standing up for herself, but also for the promise she had made to John, to her father, to all the dogs they'd rescued. Please, her boss sneered. You think saving a few dogs is going to erase your mistakes? You're still the same person who left all of this behind. The words echoed deep, like a bell tolling to mark the end of her resilience. A familiar ache surfaced, the memory of leaving that job, of her father's disappointment. But just as that weight threatened to crush her, she felt a surge of clarity. I'm not running away from my past, she said, her voice steadier than before. I'm running toward a better future. I'm building something meaningful, something that matters. John, standing beside her, nodded with fierce approval. Sarah knew this was her moment, not just to prove herself to him, but to the world. The crowd around them started murmuring, sympathy flickering in their eyes. Her eyes darted between her former boss and the stunned manager. Everyone deserves second chances, she continued, her heart pushing her forward. Not just me, but everyone. Isn't that what we should be striving for? For a brief moment, the world hung suspended. Every sound faded away, all eyes on her. I never thought I'd hear that from you, her old boss murmured, his bravado faltering. Then maybe you didn't know me at all, Sarah replied, feeling lighter with every revelation. But I'm not that person anymore. Today, I'm part of something bigger. I'm not just saving dogs, I'm saving people like John, like myself. Something shifted in the crowd, nods of understanding passing among them. With that, the barriers crumbled. I'm asking for your understanding not as a favor, but as a recognition of growth, she said, the fear no longer holding her back. As her old boss struggled to gather himself, she heard laughter, a joyful sound that pulled her attention. A group of children, united with smiles and wagging tails, started to gather around her, their innocent happiness spilling into the air like confetti. In that moment, Sarah saw it clearly, this was her family, her community. They were rooting for her. Are we really all that different? She asked, her heart racing, not from anxiety but from hope. What if we used our experiences to build something better together? The manager sighed, deep in thought. Her old boss's pride was visibly wavering as he glanced at his colleague, uncertainty dancing in his eyes. As the children coaxed a bouncing Charlie forward. Excitement erupted in a flurry of tail wags and happy barks. The laughter of innocent joy pierced the thick tension surrounding them. I guess we all could use a little reminder that kindness can change lives, her old boss relented, his tone softer. Maybe I could support what you're doing after all. In that moment, Sarah felt the air shift, the burden of her past unfurling like an old flag finding a breeze. Thank you, her voice was filled with gratitude, tempered with discernment. John turned to her with a proud grin, his eyes sparkling in the sunlight, filling her heart with an unshakable warmth. For the first time, Sarah felt a completeness, a certainty that no matter what they faced next, they could tackle it together. As laughter surrounded them, a mixture of joy and newfound community, Sarah realized something monumental had shifted. The stepping stones laid ahead were not just for herself but for everyone who felt lost, forgotten, or alone. And standing beside her father, who watched with pride sparkling in his eyes, she knew she was ready to embrace the truth, no matter what it held. together then?" her father asked, extending a hand to her. "Together," she confirmed, reaching for his, feeling the bond finally sealing the cracks of the past with hope and unity. That day, under a clear blue sky, life breathed anew, each heartbeat marked by promise, and every step holding the weight of their journey together. As sunlight poured over them, Sarah whispered a vow to cherish the transformations that had brought them to this moment. It was just the beginning. And with that realization, Sarah beamed, ready to rise. This is what she had fought for. A life full of love, purpose, and community. A sanctuary, woven with shared stories and forgiveness that could grow to embrace all. Now, with an unwavering spirit, she could finally lean into the future, free from shadows, intent on letting the light shine through. Are you ready to also take that leap? Don't wait. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover transformative tales. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey of growth and redemption. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.